It's been more than 7 months since the tragic collapse of a building in George. In May, the catastrophe claimed lives, shattered families and left an entire community in mourning. Now, as we head into 2025, the consequences of that day are still deeply felt. Survivors are struggling to rebuild their lives amid poverty and disability. Grieving families continue to wait for justice and compensation, and questions about accountability remain unanswered. Newzroom Afrika Kema has more on the story.
It's been 7 months since the George building collapse, and this is all that's left from the tragedy. A tragedy that shook the nation. The George building collapse claimed 34 lives and left countless scarred forever. It brought devastation no one could have imagined. What began as just another day for workers and the community turned into an unthinkable tragedy. Families rushed to the site, clinging to hope, waiting for news. For some, that news brought unimaginable grief. For others, it was the beginning of a long and painful road to survival. Months later, the pain lingers. Survivors face lives forever changed by physical injuries and emotional scars. Families mourn loved ones whose lives were cut short. For many, the wait for justice and accountability has only deepened the wounds.
Omunye ukuthi survivile ngese building leya yalapha eGeorge la yasala eGeorge.
Ubungumuntu wesingaphi ukhutshwa pha?
Bathi ngimukugcibela ngiphuma ngiphila.
Gabriel is considered one of the lucky ones, if this survival can be called luck. He was pulled from the rubble of the George building after being trapped for an excruciating 118 hours. The father of a small baby had gone to work that day like any other, never imagining he would spend 5 days in darkness, alone, and slowly losing hope that he would be found. The experience would change his life forever.
Ngo-2 sasebenza. Uthi sebenza laphana ngizwa something uthi cha. Yabo. So ngijonga phezulu. Ngiyayibona iroof uthi yeza hayi. Uthi ngizama ukubaleka into le ishona ngaphansi. Ngiyabona. Ya ishona ngaphansi so akunokuthi ngabayeleka so ngivaleleka lapha. So isikhathini ngivuke ngibona ukuthi ngise amatsheni amanye so lapha kumnyama lapha awuboni next yabona la ukuthi islab lesanathi sibambe ama bricks yabona ama bricks eceleni silaki I think so yabona ngibe nelaki lapho yabona hlala ngiscream the whole day abantu bayasebenza phezulu mara bangizwe ukuthi ngiscream yabona so I think ngiphelele ngehuphi ukuthi bazongikhipha lapho. So ngizwe i-radio ithi clear yabona laba abantu bokuseva abantu ya ngiyayizwa so ngicela ihelp lapha bangizwa labantu yabona so baba bazongihelpa bangisusa lapha so bagcina bangise esibhedlela ngibenele I think jabulile ukuthi maybe ngizophuma lapha yabona ngiphila ukuthi nginengcoso encinci funeka ngiyisupport yabona so I think ngikhalela yona kakhulu.
But survival came at a cost. Gabriel struggles to sleep since the incident, haunted by memories of concrete pressing down on him. He recalls the moment rescuers found him, pulling him from the darkness. Even now, the trauma lingers. He can't even walk into tall buildings anymore.
Namhlanje ngiright ngiyazama ngelife yabo.
Usasebenza ku-construction?
Angisasebenzi manje ngihlele.
Ngoba?
Kunzima ukuthi ngiye eSpanini because sometimes ngibona ibuilding ngicabanga lento leya ukuthi izongenzekela futhi yabona. Counseling ngiyaya ma. Angisafuna ukuyicabanga lento leya ma. Yeah. because sometimes angikhona ukulala ngicabanga lento leyana yabo. Indaba emali asazi ukuthi because abantu laba basitshela next sometimes bayasilindisa mara ukudla khona bakhona ukusinika every month. Yeah. Bagcine nini ukusinika ukudla. Bagcine November lo. September so yeah sine 2 months singafumana ukudla mara manje basitshela ukuthi sifuneka solanda amavocha kunamavocha funeka solanda ukudla eShoprite yini akunzima life le yokuhlala la endlini angijoyelanga ngijoyela ilife le yokusebenza ngisebenza so ukuthi ngihlala endlini awuhlali nesento awuhlali na next yabo ukuthi ngifuneka ngitshela abantu ukuthi ufuneke ba believe uGod ukuthi uGod akhona yabona ngiyathemba ukuthi uyangisavile namadlozi nawo athi makhona mangisavile yabo so asibelieveni kuNkulunkulu namadlozi.
Unemployed and still recovering from his emotional injuries, Gabriel relies on food vouchers to survive, and a good Samaritan, Muriel Hao Yun, assists with donations. When we visited, his home was empty, no food, no money. Yet, Gabriel speaks of his survival as a second chance, one he's determined not to waste. Gabriel's story is not unique. Like him, other survivors and victims' families are left to pick up the pieces with little support and few answers.
Bendiphezulu ke stepisi esastepisi sibuye sajona andizange nafumana nexesha lakuba ndijonge uba kwenzeka ntoni ndaziva sendilele phansi.
For Ivaldo Makamo, the collapse shattered his world in ways he never imagined. Pulled from the debris after hours of fear and pain, he woke up in a hospital bed to a grim reality. His leg was gone. A laborer who relied on his physical strength for his family, Ivaldo's loss was more than a limb. It was the loss of his livelihood and being able to provide for his family.
Kunzima because imeko ayisafana la maxesha benikwazi ukuzenzela into. Ngoku nizothi uba ngumntu nixhomekeke uncedweni ngumntu. Yeah, nothi kuba nithi hayi ngomso ndizovuka ndiyophangela ndiyothini ayisananzeka senzothi ibuhlungu loo nto leyo kum. Yeah, niyazama ukuzicontrola kuba ndibe strong. Yeah, because ayisekho enye indlela.
Today, Ivaldo's life revolves around a single-room shack. His family relies on the little support they receive, but it's not enough. Without work, the weight of providing for his wife and children rests heavily on his shoulders. Compensation promised after the collapse remains nothing more than empty words. And Ivaldo's frustration grows as he watches his family struggle to survive.
Yeah, utshintsha ke izinto kuba ndinabantwana nomfazi and abantwana especially ke xesha langoku umntana ngayazi uba utata ngaphangeli. Xa bona abanye abantwana banxibe kakuhle banwabile batye izinto ezimandi. Naye unayo lento kuba utata ngafuna unithengela kanti ayo loo nto lento kuba imeko ayisafani so iyanitsha loo nto leyo kakhulu.
But Ivaldo's story is not an isolated one. The collapse that left many survivors with injuries that altered the course of their lives forever. Shadrack now faces a new reality of loss, dependency, and an uncertain future. His story, like Ivaldo's, reveals the cost of the collapse.
Go ba le ntho e tsalang ke ukule fela ka re o la nkwa motho o palame lift so ke ukule fela ka ke thewa ka lift ke a class ka lift so after mo ka mo ke ukwa ke thewa ka lift ya ba bele ho so le dark ka mahlo ha ke sa bona next ha ke sa tseba na ho la wa etsala jwa but mind wa ka ntse lo fela okay building e ntse re sebetsa e wele so e re hatile hodimo ntho ena e etsa very quickly and ka nako e la ke sa hopola le gore na ke la ka kwa di ntse ke utlwa di pain but ntho e ke e hopolang ne ke sa utlwa like ke go beile letsogo ke go beile leoto ne ke utlwa fela gore no man ke na ke a painelwa but ke sa utlwa ke painelwa jwang kae ke gore a nna ne ke bona fela gore there is no way gore nka phela mona ke bone bophelo ke bona fela gore no sentse ke iketse ke free time e bula ke nagana ka building eno ho etsetse ntho e so mola batho ba hlokofetse so ha ke sana letsogo ha ke sana leoto so ke tlo tsamaya jwang hao ke tlotla ke sebetsa jwang family ya ka e tlo phela jwang wa bona ne ke nagana ntho tse jwalo.
For Shadrack, survival came at an unthinkable cost. Trapped beneath the rubble, his arm was pinned under the debris. Rescue workers made a harrowing decision. They had to amputate it right there, beneath the collapsed building, to save his life. Shadrack survived the collapse, but the injuries he sustained have taken away not just his mobility, but his independence.
Ngale ha ke nna kwene ke le ka motlase cause na le ntho tsene ding di hadile letsogo so ha di hadile letsogo so ne ba sa gone go ba kang hula so ba tlamela gore ba etse wa mal cut re khona gore ke etse jwang ke etswe mo that is why ke thotse imputation ya letsogo khona yona e trauma kakhulu manje ngisanayo.
What happens?
I can tell you already. Motho bula ntse o nagana ka yona gore a se ntho e tswang hang every time motho bula o nagana o hana go so and motho o sa kgona go tsamaya so tsamaya ka wheelchair so ke ntho e jwalo fela go jwalo go na le ntho e tsalang like ha e tsale nna ke le mo e tsala motho mo le monganang le bothata bo baka go na le o utlwe ka ga di parts tse se di le siko tse like ntse di le teng o utlwe like ka go botsikinyano ka ngwaya so ba o thola gore di fingers tsene o kwa ka ga di teng o ka di scratch about e le ntho le gore ha eyo total so ke ntho na lo etsala but batho ba ile go ba se ba phela jwalo ka nna ba re ntho nonong e qetella e fedile.
Unable to move freely, he depends on others for even the simplest tasks, being helped out of bed, taken to the toilet, or stepping outside for fresh air. His brother, who traveled from Lesotho to assist him, has been his lifeline. But even this support is temporary. His brother must soon return home, leaving Shadrack to face his struggles alone.
Ke dula nkare ke mogotsi wa ka so ke dula le abuti wa ka ke na motho a ntse a nthusa like bo ho ya bo di chaka bong ho ya kae bo ntho tsa bo di paperwork ya ke ya bo ntho tsa bo home affairs bo labor bo kae jwalo so motho ke dula re dula le yena ke mogotsi ya ka but o a sebetsa mo ha gana go hayo o mosebetsing but ka tlung ha ho boima hakalo anywhere ba ntse re gona gore che batho ba bang ba dithuso ne ba re thusanyana ka bo tšhelete tsa bo dijo bo ha ona le moriang bo transport jwalo taba tsa ditšhelete tsa gona tsa di-compensation di santsane ho sebetsanwa le tsona ga ba se ko ba re bolella gona re tlo di fumananeng but re ntse re le processing ya ba re ba sa le processing ya tsona gobane ke gona ntse go tsamaya bo di-case tsa bo maponeseng gore ba bona batho ba molato bana ba bolaile batho so ditšhelete tsa di-compensation ha go so di fumane but ke gona ntse re le processing ya tsona ha jwale go jwalo ke tota ke tswa ke ya mo kilo dula teng mo kilo assistwa ke batho ba ba kilo dula mo le bona mo tla ga ntse ke ya di check up tsa doctoring e bentse ke tloa mo ke ntse ke ya hona teng
so but hospice living le
plek eno ke ya go yona ke nkare ke hospice kapo ke ntho ka reng space care ke mo batho ba tsamang ka di-wheelchair ba dulang teng.
For now, Shadrack remains in a dilapidated house, crammed into a single room with his brother and a friend offering him shelter. But this fragile arrangement cannot last. With no family nearby and unable to return to Lesotho, Shadrack must stay close to George for ongoing compensation meetings that offer the faintest hope of justice. As his brother prepares to leave, Shadrack's next destination is a hospice, where he will continue his battle for survival.